As we're all aware, Texas is facing a mental health crisis.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Toth, for what purpose?
will the gentlelady please yield for
Will
questions?
the lady yield for questions?
As soon as I finish my layout, if you don't mind.
Not
Yes,
at this
ma'am.
time.
168 out of 254 counties do not have a licensed psychiatrist. 78 counties without chemical dependency counselors. There are more examples that we all know. Senate Bill 646 aims to address our mental health workforce shortage by bringing professionals to areas experiencing a service gap like many of our rural communities. This program was first developed in 2015 by Senator Schwartner, and I'm very excited to bring it back today. And Mr. Speaker, I move passage.
Mr. Toth, for what purpose?
Will the gentlelady yield for
Will
questions?
the lady yield for questions?
I yield.
The lady yields.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Can you expand a little bit more on the need for this type of legislation, why it's necessary?
Sure. There are a lot of counties that are without the type of mental health professionals that we truly need to truly serve our constituents. This bill also does expand to allow school counselors to be eligible as well. We do know, especially after Uvalde.
What type of counselors?
Our school counselors,
School counselors?
yes. And we know especially after Uvalde, we wanted to make sure that we have school counselors available. So this does expand to make sure that we do have them for our public schools.
So the Texas Health Resources is a faith-based nonprofit health system. Have you heard of them by any chance?
No, I have not.
They registered against SB 646 in committee. Do you remember that? Do you have any idea why? Did you talk to them?
No, I did not.
So the goal of your bill is laudable. More services for needy people it's a great thing, but I worry about the unintended consequences of your bill. Does your bill do anything to protect children from the dangers of social transitioning?
Oh, absolutely. Again, this is about school counselors. There are different sets of rules that manage what school counselors are doing with our students. This is just making sure that we do have the availability of school counselors in our schools and talks about loan repayment programs.
Are you aware of the flagship associations in the mental health space subscribe to the advocate for the harmful gender-affirming treatment that school counselors are adhering to currently?
Again,
So the American Counseling Association, the Texas Counseling Association, this Texas Psychological Association, the American Psychological Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Medical Association, and the World Professional Association of Trans Health, WPATH. Ms. Davis, would it surprise you to learn that much of the continuing education these professionals are required to complete to maintain licensure to support these harmful social experimentation? Do you understand that what you're doing here is you're advancing the number of people that are advancing this?
Again, right now the law does say that we need to have school counselors available for our public schools. This just makes sure that they have a loan repayment program. There are different opportunities to address the things you were talking about. This makes sure that, again, as in statute, we do have school counselors to make sure that we do have a pipeline of school counselors. We know we do need them sincerely in our public schools, and this just makes sure that we do have them. There are other opportunities to address some of the things you've talked about, but again, this just makes sure that we have the school counselors that we need in our schools to serve
Under
our
the
students.
prior administration and through WPATH, Title IX was rewritten. Are you aware of that?
I'm sorry?
Under the prior administration, presidential administration, are you aware of the fact that the Biden administration tried to rewrite Title IX designations?
Again, this is about school counselors
I
and
know
the
that's
mental
the
health
problem, though,
repayment
is that
program.
school counselors
And
are
school
advancing
counselors
gender
is just one of the
dysphoria and
opportunities.
gender-affirming care.
It does also talk about psychiatrists and
Members,
different needs.
please don't speak over each other so that the members can hear the debate.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. So, again, getting back to this, are you aware of the fact that 80% or more of children with gender confusion desist, if not affirmed or medically transitioned? And again, what I'm asking you is, why are we advancing more counselors in our schools that are members of these associations that are encouraging kids to seek gender-affirming care?
Again, school counselors, their main objective is not about gender-affirming care. It's making sure that students have the tools they need to be successful in our public schools. So this makes sure that they have those counselors in place that can serve our schools. School counselors do a multitude of things for our students, including make sure they're taking the right courses to set themselves up for success. So again, this is making sure that, as in statute, we do have school counselors that are available to serve our students.
Did you know that only 12% to 27% of children who experience gender dysphoria carried into adulthood?
Again, that has nothing to do with this bill.
What about suicides, Mrs. Davis? Are you aware that individuals who receive this kind of experience as kids have a higher suicidal rate?
Again, that has absolutely nothing to do with this bill.
Would you
Please
be open?
confine your remarks to the subject of the bill.
You're right. Would you be open to accepting a friendly amendment to protect our kids from these adverse health outcomes?
Again, that is not germane to this bill.
My amendment would prohibit professionals engaged in social transitioning from being eligible for loan repayments under this program. Would you accept that as an
Unfortunately,
amendment?
that is not a part of this
Please
bill.
confine your remarks to the subject of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker,
Ms. Morales-Shaw, for what purpose?
will the gentle lady yield for some questions?
Will the lady yield for questions?
I will.
The lady
Thank
yields.
you. Rep. Davis, did you, prior to coming to the Texas House, you served on the school board, is that correct?
The State Board of Education, yes.
Okay. And you have intimate understanding of the issue with children benefiting from counselors being in their school?
Absolutely,
Do you not?
yes.
The way I read this, and also what I've seen in committee, there was enormous support for your bill, is that correct?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Did that include the Texas Counseling Association, Texas CASA, NAMI, that's a premier mental health voice for the community, Texans Care for Children, Coalition for Texas with Disabilities, United Way of Texas, American Foundation for Suicide, and Texas Association of Community Health Centers?
Yes, they were all very in support.
My understanding from the committee hearings also is that your bill specifically emphasized the need for rural counties to have the counselors that this bill incentivizes and advocates for. Is that not correct?
Yes, 168 out of 254 counties do not have a licensed psychiatrist, so we want to make sure that these are available all across Texas.
What was that number again?
168 out of 254 counties.
So more than half of our counties, school districts, don't have mental health counselors.
And this is for a licensed psychiatrist, yes.
Okay, very good. And does this bill have anything to do with gender affirming care?
Not at all.
Okay, I didn't think so, and I didn't hear any of that in the committee hearing as well. So do you feel like that argument is a valid argument to cancel mental health counselors for kids that need it to be able to succeed in their educational endeavors by tacking on an inaccurate label to these organizations that have dedicated their time and workers to helping Americans overcome mental illness?
Absolutely not. This is just making sure we have mental health professionals available all across Texas.
Thank you. We both benefited from that in our attendance at Texas Public Schools, and I hope that our children in the future get to benefit from it as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move passage.
Mr. Toth to speak in opposition to the bill.
Mr. Speaker, members, I rise in strong opposition to 646. The bill does nothing to protect children, Texas children, in our public schools. Two counselors that offer social transitioning that is occurring right now across the state. And thanks to the work of courageous parents and fearless medical professionals across the state, the Texas children's whistleblowers, we know just how bad things are. In my district, Montgomery County, I've been approached by several parents whose children are being transitioned in public schools by counselors at this current time. One child over a 5-year period, multiple campuses, multiple teachers, multiple guidance counselors. And the parents are just now finding out about it 5 years later. We ought not use money that we have garnered through taxation Mrs. T, I'm not lying. And I'd be more than happy to sit down and share the names of them with you. And Bel Air High
Mr.
School,
Speaker.
as an example, is another one of them. Bel Air High School,
Mr.
where the
Speaker, would the
governor's
gentleman yield for a
conducting
question?
it. 1 second.
Not at this time.
Bel Air High School is another example. Bel Air High School, one of the children turned in a paper, a little girl. She turned in a paper with her name on it. The teacher crossed out her name in red pen and wrote a boy's name in and said, if you're going to turn in another paper, this is the name that you'll turn it in under. The governor has opened up an investigation in this. And again, what this comes down to is, why are we spending tax dollars to affirm this kind of counseling if these counselors will not make a commitment to not take part in this? And many of the associations that were mentioned from the back mic by the other member are associations that affirm this type of counseling and social transition of children.
Mr. Speaker, would the gentleman yield for some questions?
Will the gentleman yield for questions?
Absolutely.
Gentleman yields.
All right, thank you, Representative Toth. So those are some interesting stories you were telling. You realize none of that has anything to do with this bill, right?
It absolutely
None of it.
does. It absolutely does.
Mr. Toth, do you know what this bill is about?
This bill is about forgiveness of student loans.
It is student loans for mental health professionals in our public schools.
Correct.
That has nothing to do with everything you were just talking about. Do
Sure
you
it
realize
does.
that? No, it doesn't.
Absolutely. You're
No, it doesn't.
taking money from taxpayers and you're validating, you're affirming, you're taking money from taxpayers and you're forgiving the student loans of people that are engaged in this kind of activity. And we should make sure that we don't do that.
So let's talk about what counselors are involved in.
Sure.
With the activity they're involved in. They help students who are having mental health challenges, right?
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
They help students who are having mental health challenges such as suicidal ideation or thoughts of self-harm.
Right.
You would agree with that, right? And you're aware that suicide is the second leading cause of death for individuals aged 10 to 24 in the state of Texas. Are you aware of that, Mr.
Yes,
Toth?
sir. Yes, sir, I am.
You are? Are you
Yeah,
concerned
and
about that?
A big concern about that is the fact that kids are being encouraged to not talk to their parents, and that's part of the Title IX.
You think students shouldn't have the ability to talk to a professional in a school setting when suicide is the second leading cause of death for young Texans?
And they should actually be encouraged to talk to their parents as well.
Well, sure they should. There's nothing in this
But they're
bill
not
that
being encouraged
there's
to
nothing
talk
in
to
this.
their parents as well when they're experiencing gender dysphoria.
Mr. Toth, can you point to anything in this bill that discourages students from talking to their parents about anything? Is
We
there
should be
anything in this bill that does that?
We should be encouraging before we acquiesce and give people.
So the answer is no. There's nothing in this bill.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you over
Well,
Mrs. T.
Ms. T's raising a good point.
Members, please take your conversations outside the rail.
To Ms. T's point, you realize this is a Senate bill, so it's already passed the Texas Senate, correct?
I understand.
Okay. All right. So even though suicide is the number 2 cause of death for young Texans, you would oppose a measure that puts more mental health professionals in our schools to help kids who are dealing with self-harm issues and suicidal ideation. You oppose that measure.
Mr. Turner, do you believe that gender-affirming care is being pushed by school counselors?
I've read the bill, Mr. Toth. I don't see anything about gender-affirming care in this bill. I don't see anything about that.
Then why won't you take my amendment and we'll be good?
I see you speaking against the bill. I don't see that you have an amendment before the House.
I asked her if she'd take a friendly amendment that just says that we won't do this in our schools, then you have nothing to worry about.
Well, we don't have an amendment before us, so I'm not going to discuss a hypothetical amendment with you because that's not in line with the rules of the House. What about depression? Would you agree that young people more and more suffer from depression? We've heard a lot from other members this session about the effect of social media and other societal factors and how that is deteriorating the mental health of young people, of kids, and leading to anxiety, depression, stress,
and gender confusion.
Would you agree that's
and
a real
gender confusion too, right?
Again, you're talking about something that's not in the bill. I'm asking you, do you think depression is a real
social media is not in
concern?
the bill either, is it, Mr. Turner?
Is depression a real concern for young people?
It is a real concern. Absolutely, it is.
Okay.
And they need good guidance counseling for that. That's free of gender-affirming care.
So by opposing
Would you
this
agree,
bill,
Mr. Turner?
so by opposing this bill, you are opposing young people, your constituents and mine, from having resources in public schools to help them navigate some of these issues that is natural in adolescence and teenage years and is more acute today because of everything going on in our society. That's what you're doing.
Kids absolutely need good counseling. You and I both agree on that, Mr. Turner. What they don't need
Then you should support this bill, Mr. Toth.
They don't. Then why won't you support my amendment, which basically says guidance counselors will not partake in gender-affirming care?
Well, I tell you, if you offer an amendment, I'll be glad to look at your amendment, but you have not filed an amendment, and you don't have an amendment on the floor right now.
I've got an amendment right here, and I asked her if she'd take a friendly amendment. If she'd like to pull the bill down so we can talk about it, I'm glad to do that.
Well, Mr. Toth, as best I can tell, this bill is simply trying to incentivize mental health professionals to take these counseling jobs in our schools where we have a severe shortage. I would add, we've had a shortage for years, and this has been one of the number one things that's been identified in all the work we've done in the Texas House on mental health care and on academic progress. This has been one of the number one things we've identified as a challenge to helping our students succeed, and I think Ms. Davis's bill goes a long way towards addressing that.
Mr. Turner,
Thank
then
you.
let's do it the right way, and let's make sure that we're not confusing children. We're encouraging children to talk with their parents and counselors that it will not confuse them.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Schatzline, for what purpose?
would the gentleman yield for some questions?
Will the gentleman yield for questions?
Sure.
The gentleman yields.
Representative Toth, I hear what you're saying. I just heard the exchange between you and Representative Turner. I think my concern is we are proposing to spend tax dollars on repaying student loans for those who may be socially transitioning students. Is it true that this body has not banned the social transitioning of students in Texas?
We have not done anything to protect these children. Let me just add one more thing, Representative. We passed a bill last session that bans social transitioning of children, and yet we're continuing, that bans the medical transitioning. Thank you. But because we've not done anything with social transitioning, the number of kids that are still on Lupron, number of little girls that are still on Lupron, the number of boys and girls that are on cross-sex hormones has not decreased at all.
So it's safe to say if this bill were to pass, we would not only have not banned the social transitioning of children in the state of Texas, but we would be forgiving many of those bad actors of their student loans with taxpayer dollars. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so I'm concerned that once we pass this, we might not get to that. I hope that we do. I hope the body gets to a bill to ban social transitioning, but I'm concerned because we've seen your bill and my bill die that would have banned social transitioning in schools here in the Texas House. I'm concerned that we're going to do this, and I know the mention was of the Texas Senate that they passed this bill, but I want to remind the body, is it not true that they did ban social transitioning in the Texas Senate this session?
Yeah, the Texas Senate under Dan Patrick has done a great job of banning social transition, and I just applaud them for the work that they've done. It's been so courageous.
So if that's the case, should we oppose this bill because we have not banned social transitioning?
Gentleman's time has expired.
I believe every Republican should vote no.
Members, please vote no.
Motion.
The chair recognizes Ms. Gervin Hawkins to speak for the bill.
Members and colleagues, as we talk about legislation, let's not allow those who have ideologies that does not relate to what we're trying to do. What we're talking about is providing certified individuals and qualified individuals in schools to be able to help our young people. We need that more now than ever before. So for someone, a colleague, to try to make this bill something different than what it is an abomination. We talk about certified teachers. We talk about having qualified individuals. We're trying to meet a need all across the state of Texas for our young people. So to have a bill that has come across from the Senate to be able to implement a program that is vital to our young people and to our families today, we should not allow that to happen. To let members come and try to hijack a great bill and make it negative. Some people in this chamber have become so tied up in gender-affirming care, it's almost a freaking insult that we would take bills and turn them into something that they're not. We are policymakers. We're supposed to be logical individuals. And for someone to add an amendment that tries to distort what's really here is an insult to this body. And everybody in this body should understand, let's stop making things nasty and ugly when all we're attempting to do is help children and families through times of crisis, through times of need, and let's stop vilifying folks saying that they are under some other agenda. Let's trust our professionals again. Let's realize that everybody doesn't have a private agenda. Our schools don't need this label. Our schools are trying to do the right things for our young people. Support this bill. And whatever amendment to try to change the direction of that is an insult. And let's stop those games. Let's stop those trying to make headlines instead of headway. And let's do the right thing. Thank you, members.
Chair recognizes Mr. Money.
Mr. Speaker, members, I'm going to keep this short. This bill is about the repayment of student loans with taxpayer money, something that I think most of the Republicans in this body opposed when President Biden tried to do this multiple times. It is using taxpayer money to repay the loans of certain people. And let's talk about what we are limiting this to. You want to stand with me, Ms. T? All right. We talked about the Texas Counseling Association. Texas Counseling Association is one of the organizations that helps to train these school counselors. And I had a school in my district, a very Republican rural district, where counselors were complaining that they went to training, and when they came back from the training, they told their superintendents, they're teaching us about gender-affirming care. And I went and met with that university, state university, and talked with the dean of the education department, with the school counseling department, and said, why are you teaching gender-affirming care to our students, to the students who are school counselors teaching our students? And they said, because the Texas Counseling Association, and they gave me this letter. I'm going to read a part of it. Supporting and providing access to gender-affirming care for transgender children promotes health and well-being. Skipping down. The gender-affirmative model of care includes obtaining a child's assent, not the parent, before engaging in any medications or surgical procedures. Meaning, if the child assents to medication and surgical procedures, they should be able to do so. And then it says, gender-affirming model of care is based on the latest scientific evidence which demonstrates families' acceptance of gender identity and providing gender-affirmative care are associated with improved well-being and mental health. These are the kinds of things that are being taught in classes to student counselors that we are now going to ask our taxpayers to pay their student loans. That's what this is. We're not paying the student loans of people who are accountants, people who are even teachers, people who are nurses and firemen. We are paying school counselors who have gotten this kind of treatment, and we are singling them out for student loan repayment. I oppose any student loan repayment by the taxpayers, but I certainly oppose one from an organization
Mr. Speaker?
that provides
Does the gentleman
gender-affirming
yield?
care and thinks that is...
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes.
He yields for questions.
You know, Representative Money, I was really just trying to not even ask you any questions, but I couldn't just let this go on anymore. I have really important questions. Do you recognize that there is a counselor shortage in our local schools? Yes or no?
Yes, I think there
Okay, hold
there
on.
are.
I'm not done. Yes.
Sure.
Okay. Do you think the legislature should address a counselor shortage in our local public schools? Yes or no?
I believe it should be addressed. Yes.
Okay, so here, the representative and the senator have a solution to address the shortage of which you say exists, and instead of trying to address the problem, we are creating misleading information. And I guess my last question is don't you think that counselors already have enough on their plates than to be bought into political agendas that are not accurate or true? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes, I would
Okay,
love.
well, thank you so much for
Yes.
answering my questions. I think it's really important that we support our counselors. I think it's really important that we give accurate information on this floor and that we are problem solvers. You agree that there was a crisis? Let's solve that crisis.
I agree. I do not agree in this solution to this crisis.
Mr. Kane, for what purpose?
Question for Mr. Money.
Gentlemen yield for questions?
Yes.
He yields for questions.
Mr. Money, they seem to believe they got you in a gotcha, right? That you recognize maybe there's a crisis, we have a shortage. Is that correct?
Sure.
Now, do you believe that the resolution of such a crisis requires us to open up the purse and give out public money, or should we reduce regulation?
Of course not. There's all kinds of regulations that could be reduced. I know some fantastic school counselors, and I think that they provide a valuable service to our students. And I think there's a lot of ways to address shortages other than opening up taxpayer money and repaying for classes that they probably should not have taken in the first place.
Yeah, that's good, Mr. Money. So we'd say, you know, there is a problem, but the solution is a problem, and so this is not the right way. We should come back to the drawing
Correct.
board.
The best school counselors I know were excellent classroom teachers, cared about the kids, moved into counseling. They didn't have a master's degree in counseling or school counseling. That's where their heads get full of a lot of ideology that I think Ms. Gonzalez was saying we shouldn't be bringing into this conversation, which I completely agree with.
Thank you, Mr. Money. I hope the Republicans are paying attention. Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Harrison, for what purpose?
Will the gentleman yield?
Gentleman yield for questions?
Yes.
Gentleman yield for questions.
Mr. Money, are you aware that during the previous administration, the Biden administration tried to enact a loan forgiveness program that was declared unconstitutional?
Yes, I think twice.
Twice.
But
So
yes.
if this body were to pass this bill without amendment, at least, it's fair to say that this body would be furthering the Biden agenda. Is that correct?
It seems like a Biden agenda program to me.
This reads exactly like a page out of the Biden administration's playbook.
Yeah.
Question for you. As I understand the bill, this would be expanding the class of medical healthcare providers who were able to qualify for loan repayment, which means your constituents, my constituents, all of our colleagues' constituents would be paying back their loans. Is that how you understand this?
That's right. The people, the good tax-paying members of my district who are struggling to get by are going to be paying the student loan of somebody who went and got some master's degree in gender-affirming care or whatever it might be.
Would that include some of your constituents and mine who, as you say, are struggling to get by, who they themselves didn't have the opportunity to go to college?
That's correct.
So would this bill include, as it's expanding the people, the healthcare providers, mental health professionals who can qualify for taxpayer-funded reimbursements, would this include healthcare, mental health specialists who believe in social transitioning of children?
There's no question that it does.
And that would include people, healthcare professionals, who believe in teaching that boys, that they can become girls and that girls can become boys. Is that correct?
Yes, and people who believe that saying something other than that is child abuse.
So if we do not amend this bill or vote this bill down, any Republican who votes for this thing would be voting to force the tax-paying men and women of the state of Texas to subsidize healthcare professionals to teach young children that a boy can become a girl and a girl can become a boy. Am I understanding this bill correctly?
Yes, you are.
Thank you.
Mr. Alcoff, for what purpose?
Yes. Does the gentleman yield for a single question?
Gentleman yield for questions.
I do.
He yields for questions.
Representative Money, is it a possibility that one of the reasons we have a shortage of healthcare workers in these schools is because of the active encouragement by some of these organizations that you cited to actually socially transitioning kids? And then if that was not the case, maybe we would have more mental health workers willing to go into these schools if they didn't feel pressured into doing this socially transitioning?
Absolutely. I think that we have a situation where there are a lot of good men and women who would love to help the kids in our schools with the kinds of things that school counselors help them with. Figuring out what their class load is, extracurricular activities, talking with them about their college plans and how to navigate through the young adult years of their life. And we have this idea that in order to do that well, you have to go and be brainwashed at a university for 4 or 6 or 8 years in order to be able to do that effectively. But there's a lot of people that you and I know that do that well without this additional credentialism or education brainwashing on what things, on these kinds of ideological issues that we're talking about. And so I don't think that it benefits the taxpayers of Texas to repay the loans of people who have made a decision to go into this profession and get those credentials.
One last question, Mr. Money. Would you be more willing to support a bill like this if this body had been able to ban social transitioning in Texas?
Absolutely. And if this was coming at a different, at a different time in the session or at a different place where we had already taken care of those important issues, then I think that a lot of those concerns would be dealt with. But still, I wouldn't want to use my taxpayers' money to fund a loan repayment program. I just think that's bad policy, regardless of the ideology. Thank you.
Representative.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Mr. Speaker,
Governor Hawkins, for what purpose?
will the gentleman yield for questions?
The gentleman's time has expired.
Extension, sir.
Members, you've heard the request. Is there objection? Chair, there is objection. Record vote. This is on the extension of time, members, the first extension of time. Ring the bell, clerk. Harrison voting aye. Wally voting aye. Howard voting aye. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? 122 ayes and 13 nays. The gentleman's time has been extended. Mr. Money? Mr. Governor Hawkins, for what purpose?
Will the gentleman yield for questions?
I will yield for questions.
He yields for questions.
Representative Money, in respect for our colleagues here, let's not have long answers. Let's get to the point.
Okay.
Does this bill have anything related to gender-affirming care in it?
Indirectly, yes.
Yes or no? Does it?
Indirectly, yes.
So that means a no. The other question that I have is loan forgiveness. Is loan forgiveness anything new?
No, it's been discussed and been a policy issue for quite some time.
Representative Money, are you the only one, and your constituents are the only ones that pay taxes?
Of course not.
There's other individuals who feel value, wouldn't you agree, in providing incentives for individuals to get into this much-needed profession? Would you agree?
Yes, and some people can vote for that. Some people can vote against. Some people could donate their own money. They could go and say, I think that the school counseling program is really
Mr.
important.
Money, one of the things I did ask is direct answers. Let's not go off on the rabbit trail, okay? Let's talk
Yes, ma'am.
about what we specifically want to do here. So we know loan forgiveness is not anything new. We know that there's nothing about gender-affirming care that's in this bill. We give incentives to developers. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Some people do, yes.
And we give incentives to make things happen, correct? So giving incentives is nothing new, correct?
I generally vote against those kinds of things, but yes, that is done.
Would you agree that in today's time, counseling support is needed in our schools?
Quality
Yes or no, sir?
No, it depends, because I think in some cases the counseling that is offered is extremely harmful to our kids. And in some cases, it is extremely beneficial. So I'm not in a position to give you a clear, yes, I think counseling is generally good.
Representative Money, would you agree that we need to support various industries, particularly in the counseling area, to be able to get folks engaged in that profession. Would you agree with that?
Not unless we ban the kind of harmful ideology that we've been talking
So
about.
everybody who's in this profession now needs a ban label attached to them because they all have ill agendas?
No, I think there are many, many, many good school counselors that would not do that. But there are many school
Representative
counselors
Money.
that are preying on our children using taxpayer money, and I don't want to give them more of it.
Representative Money, every professional is not preying on our children.
I
Thank
didn't
you for
say
answering my
every. I
question.
said there are some.
Mr. Speaker,
This manual for what purpose?
for the gentleman yield for
Gentleman
a few
yield for questions.
Mr. Money, I want to
Yes.
ask you
Gentleman yields for questions.
a few questions. Do you know how long I've been in this building?
How long you have been in this
Yes.
building? I don't know.
Over 20 years. Do you know when this program was created?
I do not.
This program was created in 2015. Do you know who created this program?
I do not.
It was Senator Schwartner and at the time Dr. Zerwas.
Okay.
This program was created to help families that you want to protect. That's why they have marriage counselors in here. I know you have a point that you're trying to make, but maybe you should read the bills before you go through with that.
No.
Because one,
Here, I'll
the
get that.
amendment and the things you're talking about are not germane to this. And second of all, you're talking about policy that you don't understand the history of, and you're trying to make a mockery of not just this system, and I know you're better than that.
Well, I'll tell you, there's two reasons, and I'll say it again. There's two reasons I oppose this. One is I oppose loan forgiveness programs generally. I also oppose this one specifically, and if I had been here in 2015, I would have voted for it again. I would have voted against it then.
Mr. Speaker,
Chasline for what purpose?
would the gentleman yield for one question?
Gentleman yield for one question.
Yes.
Gentleman yields for a question.
Representative, are you aware that college and university loan forgiveness, we have a clear stance against this in our GOP platform?
Yes, I am clear on that.
So, sorry, I said one question. Would you yield for one more?
I will yield for one more question.
So is it safe to say that we should not, as Republicans, be voting for this bill, even if we had banned social transitioning? We and our platform say that we do not want to give loan forgiveness, that should fall on the role of the university. Is that correct?
That's correct. I would not. I would be with the Republican Party of Texas and vote against this.
Thank you.